I mean, you originally mentioned to me that you had all kinds of ideas around the greater field of machine learning and how sometimes we can get stuck thinking that you need to be either a data scientist or an ML engineer. But there are so many other places that you can play in the cycle of putting out machine learning products. So why don't we start there? Like, can you give us how you're seeing that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's true. Like a lot of people get wrapped up into, like what algorithms do I need to study, data pipelines, like data infrastructure, and like fast forward and think about the technology. And as a product manager, maybe I'm biased, but I think the totality of what goes into building an ML product. There's actually a lot that goes into building and launching actually a successful product, not just a technology product. And when you think about not just the engineering or the science, there's also a bunch of go-to-market type activities, customer-facing activities. There's like internal project management type stuff, and I think like when you take that all together, I think we talk about machine learning and like the data category, and usually we're talking to ML engineers or scientists or software engineers, and really kind of like pigeonhole kind of those roles to be what they are. But like there's a lot of other I think there's a lot of other opportunity out there besides just those roles, and especially like big companies too. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces, and takes actually a pretty sizable team to get something shipped. So yeah, I'd like to talk about like what are all those other kind of like roles or like non-traditional parts of like the ML ecosystem, or like career paths in the ecosystem, and like where can people add value if like maybe they don't want to write Python for the rest of their life.
Yeah, there's one thing that I think it's great that we're already touching on maybe these non-traditional career paths in ML, which is something I think we've mentioned discussing. I'd be curious to hear maybe a start off just to hear about your progression through the ML sphere from different roles, because when we worked together, I remember you as this deep technical person working on implementation, building out core infrastructure, and now you've kind of transitioned to PM. But love to hear, I'm sure that the listeners would also love to hear just what has that non-traditional career path look like for you.
Yeah, and
Yeah, sure.
spoiler alert, this is a reunion of the two AWS folks here. I'm the only one that's not got AWS in my blood on this call.
We're gonna start making some inside jokes, and you just have to phase out for that.
Exactly. Me and the listeners will go grab some coffee or whatever we do. Anyways, Matt, what were you saying? Didn't mean to cut you off here.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I guess I started as a computer science major in college, and after college, I think like didn't love what I did in school. Back in what was this 04, 2004, we did when you did computer science in college, it was like enterprise Java, and I found it like very soul sucking and hated like object oriented design, and like felt like I didn't want to do that for a living for the rest of my life. And went into the Air Force actually because I wanted to be a pilot, and my eye like had some eye issues, didn't work out. Ended up still going to the Air Force for a while, launching rockets. Not super related, but after I got out, I had a lot of in the Air Force security experience. I did some like network security, like pen testing type stuff as a consultant. And then moved to a startup that my friend had started. It was called Localytics back in the day. And they did basically mobile analytics. And I started there as a solutions consultant, actually. So this is kind of like an onboarding role, like working with customers to help them get started with the product and become successful. And that's kind of like we can do some kind of like ding or sound, but like that's one role we can talk about too. Is like consulting or like implementation consulting, onboarding, I think is like definite need for if you're building kind of like ML products or kind of any products, SaaS products. There's probably someone that is there to help like kind of provide white glove service to help customers become successful. And that's what I did there. Moved into like a solutions architect role, more like helping customers if they have more hairy like implementation issues or like custom implementation issues, and did some kind of like post-sale consulting and implementation work. So any like custom professional services they would kind of need, so we would help like build those integrations with customers. And did a lot of work naturally with AWS. In that role, being a startup, they were pretty much all in on AWS, and moved to, of course, Amazon in AWS as a similarly solutions architect. And that in that role, some solutions architect is like a term that means a lot of different things at a lot of different companies, but at Amazon and AWS at least, it's kind of similar to like other companies have a role called a sales engineer, where you're working with, you're probably paired with a salesperson or like team of salespeople, and you're providing like technical guidance to customers, usually again like in consultation with the salesperson. So a lot of roles have kind of like pre-sales consultant or like sales engineer, if you will, that kind of depends on the product and how they go to market, but like a pre-sales consultant that helps answer technical questions and like overcome technical hurdles in the sales process to more or less like get big deals done. And then after a sale's done, maybe the customer moves into like post-sale consulting, and they'll work with like a onboarding or like solutions consultant type person to help get them like implemented and onboarded. But at AWS it's a little bit different because in AWS we don't necessarily have like deals, or like it's not like a SaaS product where you sign up or product where you buy like a big package of software. It's like metered billing. So solutions architects are kind of like paired with a customer, and maybe it's one-on-one, depends on the size of the customer, but like some customers have a big team of solutions architects working with like all their different orgs or like different verticals, or like in different specialty areas. And then other like smaller customers might have like one solution architect that covers like many customers in like the smaller startup segment. But yeah, and then like enterprise customers might be paired like one-on-one with like an account manager or salesperson to cover kind of like a patch of customers that they work with. But yeah, and then I guess from solutions architect moved into like a product manager role. Moved from AWS to the Alexa team at Amazon. This is in Boston. And there was doing a similar role, like solutions architect, more for like internal customers. So our internal customers in Alexa, and Mihail was one of them. We're building like models with AWS and Alexa, and like for Alexa use cases. So doing a lot of like
up until this
language
point,
modeling.
you hadn't dealt with machine learning. It was when you went on to the Alexa team that you started doing
That's
machine
a good
learning
point.
products.
I should like level to the ML stuff. So we were doing some like, before it was called machine learning, I guess we called it like predictive analytics, or like predictive-looking analytics. And
That was the code word.
at the startup I was working at, we did some of that. It was like we could tell maybe like when a customer was going to like churn from a mobile app they're using, or when a customer would like click on a specific push notification. We did these kind of like, we called them at the time predictive analytics. So started doing some of that before machine learning was like really a thing people talked about. And then at AWS we did, I did do a lot of like machine learning implementations and projects with like financial services customers or like insurance customers or like biotechs that were doing, like machine learning work and using AWS compute services. This is also before like higher level AWS services like SageMaker and other things came out. But using like figuring out how to use AWS storage compute services to their fullest potential for like machine learning workloads, basically. So yeah, I did a lot of that in AWS. Kind of was like an ML specialist there, and then moved into Alexa, still as like a machine learning specialist, solutions architect. So it can get like pretty specialized in big companies, I would say. Like there's a lot of like X role for machine learning, I would say, too, with some of these companies. I moved into Alexa as like machine learning specialist, solutions architect, which is a lot of words. But yeah, basically like helping internal Alexa customers. So like there's the ASR, like automated speech recognition team, or like our natural language understanding team, like all these different speech and language modeling teams would have like problems using, like breaking AWS in different ways and like figuring out how to use infrastructure in the best way for their like machine learning workloads. So kind of helped internal Alexa teams with that. And then moved into like a product role because I felt like as a solutions architect it was great, enjoyed it quite a bit. Wanted to have a little more like, I had a lot of strong product opinions. So I wanted to have more like, be more kind of upstream, like have more ownership over like the engineering and like product development process, and like I guess have more input into what we're actually building and prioritizing versus like feeling like I was implementing something someone else built, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd love to zero in a little bit more on transitioning from deep technical implementer to like kind of a PM role. And one of the things I'd also love to touch on and get your thoughts on here is, PMs have been around for a while. I mean, PMs have been in software orgs for as old as probably software has been around, as long as software has been around. And I do wonder, how is an ML PM, right, or an AI PM different? And what different skill set does that require? What different responsibilities does that require? If there are folks that are listening that are interested in getting into more ML style PMing, or maybe transitioning from regular PM roles into ML PMs, what should they be thinking about and preparing?
Yeah, that is a phenomenal question that I was unprepared for. But so I would say there's definitely a spectrum of PM roles, like, and there's different archetypes, I would say. Like, everyone thinks about the classic, like Steve Jobs type visionary PM, I guess, where, we have like these think big ideas and like throw it over the wall for someone to like get it done. But I would say on like the total other side of the spectrum, there's like a lot of technical product manager roles, and a lot of the ML type or like ML adjacent PM roles are kind of like, I call them like platform PM roles, where you're working on oftentimes at like big companies, but increasingly smaller and smaller companies are doing a lot of like data infrastructure work and realizing like data is actually a product, even internally. So I find like increasingly there's a lot of platform PM type roles where even at smaller companies, you're owning kind of like internal, whether it's like data products, maybe your company does a lot of data work and it's like financial services or something else, and you have a lot of like specialized high quality or like high value data that you're vending to other internal teams or externally, and there's like PMs that make sure the data they're producing provides value to your customers, and what is like the roadmap for the data products that you provide. Or like there's traditional, I guess, platform PMs who kind of own like the feature set and roadmap for internal platforms, and you've seen plenty of those, like the Michelangelos at Uber, whatever else there is. So you're owning basically like internally, what are like the infrastructure capabilities of that platform, and your customer is usually like internal and maybe eventually external customers. So you provide like capabilities to other internal teams to help other internal teams move faster, basically. So I guess like core competencies there for a PM is you probably have to be much more technically inclined than other types of PM roles. Probably like domain expertise too, I would say. Like a lot of these roles would be difficult to come into without like some ML cloud data, like domain expertise, I guess. But I would say like internal stakeholder alignment, communication. Usually companies expect like PMs to be the best communicator in the room. So I would say there's a lot of like that unsexy kind of like internal like communication, like selling your ideas internally, like pitching for resources, that kind of thing too as well.